cold opener. A vote for the Piketty plan now is a vote for the Morgenthau plan in 5 years.
Yep.
All right, Rob.
That's our episode.
That was it.
We did.
Bye.
Before we get into the serious talk, I do have a little update from last week. Let me introduce it this way. Has anyone ever heard of Archive of Our Own?
No, that sounds very Nazi though. But go on.
Well, Archive of Our Own is a non-profit open source repository for fan fiction (in parentheses fic) and other fan works contributed by users. The site has received positive reception for its curation, organization, and design, mostly done by readers and writers of fan fiction.
I feel like I know where this is going.
Now, last week I promised that we would read some Merkel and Macron fan fiction on the show.
Yes.
I am very sorry.
Hang on. Fan fiction or slash fiction?
Yeah, that's the question.
There's a difference.
I'm reading fic. Okay, it's just called fic on Archive of Our Own because they're Archive of Our Own.
So you
entries.
mean the German word fic, and it's just to be all them fucking.
Is it like CK?
I am very sad to report that I did not find any Merkel and Macron specific fic.
Maybe they're like existing in two separate universes, and then like one day we're gonna get the crossover episode. So let's be patient.
I am impressed how many there are. 24 Angela Merkel tags in the archive. In various languages.
Nice.
I'm just going to give you a quick taste of what we have here.
Imagine just like the Greek fan fictions just being just like slasher films.
Being fin-domed by her.
That or the exact opposite.
You know, you guys are talking about $1 million ideas here because there's a lot of room to expand. Very popular is the Macron-Justin Trudeau.
Oh. Wait, is
Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump.
Trudeau's
boring. Come on.
Yeah.
What is this like wine moms tweeting?
I'm pretty sure
hang on. Is there any Digimon / Recep Tayyip Erdogan?
Like I said, there is
because that's been an idea of mine for a while.
There's a lot of room to grow here.
Okay.
Some are a little more. I like this one, for example, a little more unique. Theresa May / Arlene Foster, one-sided.
Oh, one-sided. That's so sad.
Kieran, should I read that one for you?
No, it's all right. Save that for a more like Irish or British themed episode.
So is there one that you want to share?
Well, here's one I'll read a little. What I like about this website is that they have the tags for who is romantically or sexually involved, and then they have the tags for just everyone else mentioned in the story. Oh, cool. So this one is called Frau Krix, Forbidden Love. And under the special tag, you have Frauke Petri and Beatrix von Storch. But then you have a whole list of everyone else mentioned in the story, which is really Alice Weidel, Sarah Wagenknecht, Angela Merkel, Martin Schulz, and you get a little, you can see in all the different directions the story goes. So I'll just read a little
reaching across the aisle.
A little quote. Exactly.
They're all there.
I was curious how they mentioned these people. I'm just going to read a little bit for you guys as a little taste of what German politics are like. Okay, I'm jumping into the middle. We have some descriptions of how good Beatrix looks. It's written from the point of view of Frauke Petri.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say like that is not a fact.
She looked like exactly the dream woman of my miracles and dreams, including the fact that she looks like a charming and splendid doll.
That is the worst written sentence I've ever heard in my entire life.
Skipping down a bit.
Holy shit.
Let me set the scene.
Hang on. This isn't going to be quality literature.
She's a dream girl of my dreams who looks dreamy. Like, that's literally what that just
Stop saying my vows back to me.
Nick, if you were in love as Frauke Petri is here, then you would know that you can't form words. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
During this moment, in 11 a.m., it was the speech of the far-left leader of the Party Die Linke, the left, Katja Kipping.
Again, they use the same words over and over and over.
She was wearing usually red clothes, but this time she was wearing black cardigan with a combination of red dress with long sleeves, a little above the knees with black pantyhose, and black mini boots with jewelries.
So she's an
ANCOM. Seriously, she's an ANCOM now.
Again, I have to remind everyone this is from the point of view.
As well.
Yeah, sexy ANCOM.
This is from the point of view of.
She's sort of just throwing bricks at the glass ceiling.
This is the G20 protest, right?
Frau Kipping was delivering a speech on the newest law, which we would vote on in the there's a lot of spelling errors. Vote in the Bundestag, and if it receives plenty of votes, we pass it on officially, and it is enforced in the end of the year. As always,
Schoolhouse Rock.
Thanks for explaining that.
As always,
you get sexy descriptions of ANCOM outfits, and you learn how the German Bundestag works. Like,
and you know who's really defending Germany. As always, we, the Alternative for Germany, are against every party's opinion and beliefs by being in alliance with the citizens of Germany.
Oh, yeah. That breaks it down.
Okay.
I was quite bored to listen to a communistic speech that brings me a slight headache, and I decided to glance at Beatrix. Noticing how her green-brown, magnificent, and pensive eyes were gazing blankly in a bored way to the Die Linke's leader, wearing a grimace face, frowning.
honey, that's just how she always looks.
Yeah, right.
She was feeling like she was drowning into the seas of nightmares, or who knows.
Again, that's just her normal facial expression.
Why do I feel like this sexy /fic is going to bring up the like Black Book of Communism or something, like the death toll? Why do I feel like that's the direction this is going in?
I can't go. And then she describes how great Beatrix looks. I can't read all of this. Yeah, and Die Linke's chief finished delivering her speech, and Frauke Petri needed to go downstairs to go speak and deliver the next speech for a few minutes regarding the upcoming law, taking with myself the speech in case if I forget any phrase or word. Yeah, it's really...
What is the law going to do?
In terms of the hero's journey, I mean, where's is this going? I mean, you need like a call to action and like point of no return.
I
And
feel
so
like with the Die Linke politician, I'm assuming that was like the belly of the beast moment, and now... What was the law about? That's what I want to know. What's the actual
It was making
content of the
Germany
policy?
illegal.
Oh, no. Shit.
You don't need to know. It was communistic, boring, and literally causes nightmares on anyone who listens to it from this description.
So it's got my vote.
Yeah, definitely.
Boring, communistic, and causes nightmares.
And
Sick.
most importantly,
Okay, we're going to write this as an
very
enemy
hot.
next.
So that's all I got for this week. I might dive back in the coming weeks because there's a lot of great content on here, and I want to support. We're independent creators on this podcast, and I want to support other independent creators on the internet. A lot of respect for the work they do.
do they have a Patreon account?
I haven't found out. There are a lot of comments on them actually. So that story, for example,
hang on.
has
What are the comments?
Yeah.
only 4 comments actually.
So we can read all of them.
Please do.
First one's in Spanish. Skipping that.
Yeah, I can read Spanish.
Second one is also in Spanish, and the other 2 are responses. So
Yeah, give it to me. I will read it.
Yes, please.
Es una historia maravillosa. Y yo quiero saber quién es Beatrix de Storch.
Donde está la sex?
That's almost American democratic debate here.
From what I understand in Spanish, they're asking why did you include Angela? Because I didn't see her come up, and the explanation is, without Angie, where are we? Always a good question. I included her in the cover of the fanfiction because she's going to be among the characters who will have a main role in addition to the bisexual couple.
Fuck, this is a
Frau
saga.
Kriegs. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So maybe the next chapter we can
shit.
report on next week.
So thank you for reading my story, Rob. It's good to get a shout out.
Oh god, this one is Marine Le Pen and Mélenchon.
No, we're stopping now.
No, yeah, done. All right, cool.
This is like horseshoe theory before eroticism. Like, I don't understand.
Hey, welcome to your weekly corner, Späti. We have a full house here. Like, literally, there's no room left in my living room for anyone else to come and participate. So we got the whole gang. I myself am Nick, and joined by Kieran.
I'm not 14. You're not 14 with me. I'm 14 with you. Sorry, I've been pretending to be a 14-year-old on Discord servers like all week.
Rob.
Nick cut my bit about anarchist Mark Maron last week, so I'm going to do it again. Mark Maronopoulos. Do you hate going to the voting booth? You can stay home and build dual power at home with anarchy.com. You can't cut it out now.
I'm gonna still cut it out. Don't worry. And Yulia's here.
Hi, I'm Kieran.
And we got 2 special guests here. coming in from the big old European spring fun time extravaganza. We got Ja Rule.
I did say that in my head to remember the pronunciation of your name. Like, okay, like rhymes with Ja Rule.
We got Carl.
Hey, what's up?
And David.
Yeah, hi.
From DiEM25, or is that officially a DiEM? I don't know. There's like 1,700,000 different names for this organization. Which one do you guys prefer?
Yeah, I prefer DiEM25.
Okay, cool. I was gonna stick with that then.
Yep.
You can't change it.
DiEM25 is good.
DiEM25
we
is
can
good,
explain
okay.
the extensive structure afterwards.
Cool. All right.
Oh yeah.
This is a little bit like a skills exchange, kind of like a alternative method of collaboration where we read you fan fiction and / fiction, and you teach us about political movements. It's really an equal quid pro quo.
Yeah, these are exactly worth each other. Did you like the story? We can do another one.
I'm wondering, is there a Varoufakis story?
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah, there is.
It's
good.
Does it include
I've written all of them.
motorbikes and I don't know.
It's just me imagining that he's my father.
Seriously.
Give me a
There's
minute.
like a lot of angry comments
For
underneath
all
me.
the listeners that don't know, that Yanis Varoufakis, former Greek finance minister, is the founder of the DiEM25 movement alongside of Srečko Horvat and a lot of other outstanding people.
And he's also my dad.
I didn't know
These
that.
stories I wrote.
These stories I've written, he is my father.
Nicodemus Varoufakis.
How did you spend 2,000 words of what is essentially just a small game of catch in the background? You playing catch with Yanis.
But he's just confused. He was like, what the fuck is this game?
Oh, God.
Okay, so yeah, we're actually here to talk about serious things for once. I don't think we've talked about serious things in a while.
I mean, I heard someone list back our topics to us once, and it was like, we had someone from Ende Gelände, we had someone from Deutsche Wohnen, and I was like, oh yeah, we actually have not been consistently just doing dumb shit. I do love the dumb shit, don't get me wrong, but we're here with some serious shit. DiEM25.
The master of puppets.
Cue the Metallica song.
All right. So I will do a basic-ish intro of what I think DiEM25 is, and then you guys will jump in and tell me how wrong and stupid I'm being. Right. So DiEM25 was started, a while ago. I want to say it was like 2016, 2017?
2016, yeah.
2016, cool. And
It was a cold winter day in 2016.
It was the winter of our discontent. So, yeah, basically a large movement, I should say, very grassroots, very grounds-up movement that seeks to, we should say DiEM25 stands for Democracy in Europe movement. And that's the basic, short pitch of the goal, bring more democracy into Europe.
Yeah, I mean, like David said, it was founded in 2016 by Yanis Varoufakis and Srečko Horvat in reaction to the various crises that are existing in Europe right now. So Yanis is famous for his role as Greek finance minister, facing off against the Troika and the trying to get a better deal for Greece, which didn't work out so well. And in response to that, he set up this movement, DiEM25, which is a pan-European movement, and the idea behind it is to have a left progressive movement, but that's pro-European, because there are kind of two alternatives politically in Europe at the moment, or we're presented often with two alternatives, which are kind of the nationalist international of Marine Le Pen, Salvini, etc., and then on the other side, Macron and Trudeau, of fan fiction fame. And basically the idea behind DiEM25 is that this is a false dichotomy, and there should be another way, which is
The third way.
episode
Guys,
title.
DiEM25 is actually Dita Vague.
Exactly. So we're now not a left
that's
wing,
our
but
electoral wing.
That's the episode title right there. But yeah, that's the idea behind DiEM25.
Oh, cool. And now we're gonna be specifically talking to you guys about or like two things that you're working on at the moment, which is the Green New Deal and I believe you're calling it digital sovereignty?
Technological sovereignty.
Technological sovereignty. But for anyone who...
Everybody gets a waifu.
Everyone gets... Fucking hell. But for those who don't know, beyond those two things, what else has DM like covered? I think just briefly, don't have to go into huge detail, but what else is like DM talking about, proposing? As briefly as you possibly can. If you can't do this, it's fine.
Yeah, there's this thing why we are called 25. It's not a reference to all those 24 websites we have. It's actually we want to have constitutional assembly in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
That is the idea that people come together and write an actual European constitution. And I think the idea is to have 25% of nation state representatives, 25% of regional or municipality representatives, 25 randomly chosen people, and the last part is 25. Do you know what the last 25% are?
Mm-mm.
But also a clever thought out thing. And then those people are going to call are going to prepare the calling for the European Constitution. And this is one of our main things that has been a bit. I'm sorry, I'm maybe the only German. You're German as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm stumbling a bit sometimes.
No worry.
That's fine.
But
That's like the most typical German thing
yeah.
to do. Like, I'm speaking perfect English. I'm so sorry for.
Continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of constitutional reform idea, which I think is the long-term goal. And the idea behind DM, or one of the approaches that we've taken from the beginning, is to say, let's have some practical reforms in the short term before we set up a constitutional assembly, because we want to get Europe working again and get people... that sounds like such bullshit, get Europe working again. But
okay.
Get people to trust Europe again before we set up, some sort of big constitutional assembly, because people get tired of that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So as part of that, we want to introduce kind of pragmatic short-term solutions like the Green New Deal, which would use existing institutions like the European Investment Bank before we go to big constitutional reforms.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that for at least me personally, like that one policy point, the Green New Deal, was like the one that stuck out the most to me. It may be because, like I said, like I stand my daddy, Yanis Varoufakis, but that like the idea then of like of taking, having an idea then of what you want Europe to be in 50 years, I think is nice and fun to kind of pretend to yourself of what then that reality could potentially be. However, we're not in like the mechanism of history to then even like remotely consider that, especially like not now with like the rise of right-wing nationalism and stuff like that. But there are things that like that program specifically is like kind of like reading through and be like, okay, this makes sense, and it would actually transition Europe pretty quickly to green energy, green technologies, whatever it is. That is like across the political spectrum, I think that like most people can agree on, unless you're just like very openly like in the fossil fuel industry or something like that.
Poland.
And what?
Poland,
or you're just the
Poland,
country Poland.
Burning coal is cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's a big discussion currently right now, like in the United States, but is always then charged with the sense of that like, because like AOC is bringing up, and given the U.S. bill is like not nearly as comprehensive, I think, as
declaration. It's not.
it's not even like actually anything of substance in my opinion, but still like the idea is nice that's there in the U.S. But where I think at least we're going to talk about this more, but like DM has like a pretty like what's the word I'm looking for? Shit. No, I'm the one who can't speak English. like a pretty like one realistic plan, and two that like it could literally happen tomorrow if like things were put into play.
Yeah, I think
it is developed more or less.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the practical aspect of it. What differentiates the DM plan from, say, other plans that from the European Green Party or others, or the Piketty Plan, for example, is that it doesn't rely on taxes. The idea is to use the European Investment Bank and the network of public investment banks that we have in Europe to inject money into the European economy. So you wouldn't need to change European treaties. It's something that you could do today. The mechanics of it involve the European Investment Bank issuing bonds on the secondary market, so financial investors would purchase these bonds. And the important thing, I guess, is that the size of the program is adequate. So what we propose is 5% of GDP to be injected into the economy every year, which is
European GDP or
Yes.
individual nation.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's, to give you an idea, that's a lot bigger than what our new dear leader, Ursula von der Leyen, is proposing. Which is,
Yes, you talked about. I think it's about 1 billion, because there's this adding to the confusion. There is this billion trillion thing, like the billion in German actually translates to trillion in American, and billion in American is actually Milliarden in Germany. So it's not the same. It's like 10 elevated to 3 difference. But she talks about 1 billion in 10 years, right?
Oh.
So 1
So that's
trillion
100
in 10 years.
That's 100 billion every year then.
1,000 billion.
No,
we're
100
getting confused.
billion.
Yeah, I'm
So annually,
1,000 American billion.
yeah. So annually would be 100 billion, right? Yeah, because 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So 1 trillion. Wait, yeah, 1 trillion in 10 years. All right.
That's what
I
Ursula
just
von der
not-
Leyen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking. I hate how German does that.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm sorry.
just use trillion.
Okay,
All right.
we'll stick to English now.
No, I'm talking about the German language as a whole.
I mean,
Just
wait
stick to
a
trillion.
minute, was your speech in German or was it in English?
Her speech was in German.
And French, because she speaks French.
Ooh.
That's
Maybe
what
this is part of her
qualifies her for
plan.
the
Maybe
job.
this is part of her plan. Yeah.
She was
To
born in
deliberately
Brussels.
confuse people with numbers. Yeah, that could work.
She wants to just go back to the old construction of the European Union, where it was just Germany and France kind of hanging out and being big bosses. So, yeah.
For a long time, it was just France, and they really want to go back to that. That's not going to happen. Germany's reunified now. It's a different ball game.
I think apart from the actual amount that we're talking about, let's take a step back, because the Green New Deal for Europe is actually a mixture. Before that, we had a New Deal for Europe and the Green Transition Pillar. Pillars are the program pillars that DiEM has.
The 5 pillars of
Actually-
DiEM.
7 or 8. And it's growing. We might have a peace and foreign policy pillar in the future, but right now it's 8 pillars, I think, or 7.
No,
Who
you're
cares?
trying to outdo Islam here now. I see how it is.
yeah, right. And the New Deal is basically what Yanis wrote in his book with J.K. Galbraith and what's this other guy, Sachs or something, the modest proposal to save the Eurozone.
Yeah.
And some things he developed while he was Minister of Finance of Greece, like the weird thing he does with the tax system in the country that the how you say it, Hacienda, the tax Finanzamt in English,
The
Finance
Revenue
Ministry.
Commission.
can issue like an own currency based on the tax you're supposed to pay, and use that as a currency when for instance the European Central Bank cuts you off of the payments. And this is one of the ideas that were actually in the New Deal. But DiEM in late 2018, DiEM acknowledged that the Green New Deal is going to be a thing, and that climate change is an amount higher than we thought it was before. Not say we were surprised by it, but we, like any political movement, we had to go with what the constituencies believe about what is important right now. And so it was kind of merged into this Green New Deal for Europe, which is actually not only to save the economy, the
Ecology.
the climate, but also, you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I think
to invest in actual jobs.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, which differentiates this from other plans, which is that it's not just about bringing us towards net zero emissions, but also to tackle the economic and social crisis that we have in Europe. We've got unemployment in Southern Europe is still, I mean, in Greece it's 20%, in Spain close to 20%.
Yeah.
You could have by youth unemployment, it gets almost to 50 if it's like under
Right.
25. Yeah.
Exactly, and we're told that the Eurozone crisis is over, and
Growth in Greece has like just been flat for
Years.
since 2012, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Or, 2009, I guess, actually, technically. Since before the Ohi vote.
Oh, yeah.
The Greek economy is flatlined and is not coming back up. But hey, maybe Nia Demokratia will change that.
Oh yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you've got that situation. You've got unemployment in Southern Europe, but you have in Northern Europe you have precarious employment, right? You have low-paid employment.
In Germany too, yeah.
Yeah, and so the idea behind the Green New Deal is that it can only be a Green New Deal for Europe, a true Green New Deal for Europe, if it tackles social inequality within Europe, and then also between the global north and south.
Yeah, but that's something I was thinking about as well. Because, I mean, if you want to take the turn to a more environmentalist, climate friendly, economy, that also includes a lot of industry sections being laid off, for example. So is there actually a plan to try to get people that are employed in these kind of industries right now to get them back to, I don't know, re-education or something like that? Re-education is the one word.
DiEM has re-education camps.
No.
DiEM actually practices yucha.
Julia really can't help
the
herself.
possibility of finding a different employment,
Yeah,
because
because
I mean, yeah.
this was something that was often touted as one of the failures of the Clinton campaign. And she talked about making this green economy, but kind of also talked about closing coal mines without really any plan for the coal workers, which is an entire state in the US. That's West Virginia. So I think this has often been a thing in the English-speaking world. The American Green New Deal isn't often talked about the people who are directly going to lose jobs need to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Not just there will be more jobs because those jobs will be somewhere else. They will be for other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And especially because these people that are then quite kind of put off by the idea of losing their jobs. I mean, through a Green New Deal, and nobody fucking talks to them. I mean, nobody's saying, yeah, here is an idea and I have a solution, or I have an idea how we can solve this problem that you're gonna fucking lose your job. Sorry for the fucking.
I think that's basically where the Yellow Vest movement came from, economic wise.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly the thing about why it's not a tax-based policy. Not one of not the reason, but it definitely was in a. I was reading the rebuttals from Galbraith and I forget the other economist, the other one who also wrote the book with Giannis, defending his plan against Piketty, using the Yellow Vests as the exact example of you see what happens when you try to then raise taxes on the middle and working class. They're gonna get pissed, and they have every right to be pissed about that.
Fucking regressive tax, if you take it a VAT.
Yeah, and liberals just fucking wet their pants over this idea that then taxation can solve everything. However, when you control your entire own currency and you can issue your own bonds, and they do it all the time, everyone's talking about MMT being this just new thing. It's always been a thing for capitalists. The financial crisis proved that exactly to be true, when you can just $1 trillion just appears out of nowhere in quotations, and gets injected into commercial banks. Quantitative easing is also technically MMT too, in that method of thought as well. This has always kind of more or less existed, but never in a sense of trying to then revitalize the economy for the average person.
See, Nick is really into economics, whereas I think it's all stupid. And fuck all of you.
You're not wrong.
I can summarize it for our listeners. To paraphrase Steve Harvey, if you print some money, print some mo.
All right, but I want to hear answers.
No, I mean, I think the quantitative easing thing is a really good example, because that's something von der Leyen talked about 1 trillion. We've agreed it's trillion, yeah. Quantitative easing was 2.6 trillion over a number of years. I mean, this is people creating money out of nothing, which is something that a central bank can do. And when we live
Don't tell libertarians that. They're going to flip their shit.
But when we live in a society or an economy where we have written into our constitutions that you can't debt spend, you can't restraining fiscal policy. We need another way to do this, and it's possible, and we've already been doing it. So why not do it further to create jobs? Why not do it to spend it directly into the economy and not just pumping it into banks that are dealing with bad debt? And that's exactly the idea behind the Green New Deal, that you don't slap a carbon tax on somebody and tell them to stop eating meat. Instead, you invest and you create jobs, and you have a more positive perspective for fighting climate change.
Yeah, and to put it in context, I mean, we're asking for 5% of the gross domestic product, and here it's stating that in the year 2015, 6.5% of the global gross domestic product was spent for fossil fuel subventions, or how you say it? Subsidies.
Yeah. So it happens, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like these practices are already.
Yeah, it's a question of the political will
Yeah.
and not of economic technocratic thing that can't happen because of some laws of nature.
So that's priorities.
Yeah. But so back to Julia's point, because that definitely is one. So like the taxation one obviously is, the big one that the liberals, like I said, liberals fantasize about, but are bad for the working class and bad for normal people, especially like with the, like the conversion from diesel to, don't have a diesel car. Like, that's the
Just
big
don't.
one, but a lot of working class people have a diesel car.
That is actually like what the AfD was campaigning with.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that
seriously,
actually
it
works.
was
Like that gets some seats in
it does
parliament.
work.
Love their European campaign. It really only worked if you had no fucking clue who the AfD was.
I forgot just how like dumb. I mean, compared to their past campaigns, like a diesel campaign isn't that racist. But what I was looking it up last night, and I forgot one of their slogans was "Kein Diesel ist illegal." Which I'm like, that's the classic AfD
Damn.
jumping out.
Yeah.
They can't contain themselves. Just one point I wasn't sure if you guys made, just to hammer it home. And like, maybe the biggest problem with taxes is that they are very unavoidable for when you implement them in this way on the middle class, but they're extremely avoidable for the very rich. Yeah. In terms of tax havens and tax shelters, it's very easy for them to move around, to move their money around.
It's fucking sport.
So like it's both sides of that coin. It's not only that they hit the middle class harder, it's that you can just like dodge that.
Oh,
shit.
what? I live in the
Also-
Cayman Islands
If
now?
you're rich.
Okay.
Also, at the same time, like if you have an idea like Piketty has, you have to convince the nation state and the government of this state to introduce these taxes. And I don't see Viktor Orban or like anyone of Kaczynski
He'll
or
do
anyone.
it, but he'll only do it so that the tax that's like only like Romas will be taxed.
Yeah,
or something.
seriously. Yeah, because
100% fuel
It's a
tax.
start, right? I mean, he
Yeah.
has done a lot of
Yeah.
weird tax things, and so
Yeah.
why not?
why not?
Have
Seriously.
you considered Viktor Orban?
His whole fucking government is built on actually
How can we
rich,
be more racist?
rich middle class Hungarian families with a lot of children benefiting from his taxation.
Yeah.
I mean that's like his
You
whole,
literally get a tax break after your fourth child in like before
Non-working
the age of
women
35.
get
Seriously.
money, right?
Yeah.
Non-working women
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
I mean, I could see him introducing a tax on all meat except pork.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So
But yeah, going back to Julia's point before we get distracted again, is the Green New Deal proposed by DiEM25, does it have a particular plan for people who would be losing their jobs if we were to, say, abandon fossil fuels tomorrow night?
I mean, the Green New Deal, just to maybe take a step back and give a look at where it is right now. So the particular plan that we're talking about is the Green New Deal for Europe.
Yes.
gnd4europe.com. And it is, right now we have 10 principles. So this is a campaign that's grown out of DiEM25. It's supported by the New Economics Foundation, the IPPR, other think tanks. There are some MEPs that have already...
Alexandra Phillips, for instance, from the Greens, UK Greens.
Exactly.
Also the good Greens, not the...
There are two Alexandra
Not our
Phillips.
Greens.
One is from the Brexit party, and the another one is from the Green Party.
oh wait.
Awkward.
But she's the one that is standing on farmers' markets and slaughtering vegan cows. And
So
Wait, this could be either one of them. Hang on.
I'm like, wait, like...
I was like, wait.
Go on.
So the stage that we're at the moment is that there are 10 principles, and the actual policy is in the process of being drafted. and it's going to be released in September for the global climate strike.
Oh, cool.
And in the principles, the 10 pillars that we have right now is a point about a jobs guarantee.
Okay.
So that would speak to your point, and that's something also that has been discussed in the States by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And the thing that I find interesting about a jobs guarantee is that in the past, we took full employment as a standard goal of any government.
Yeah.
And now...
When was that? In the 30s?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the German Stabilitätsgesetz. What's it called? The from way back when. Not the 30s. After that. But I mean,
how far after that?
But I mean,
5 years or 20 years?
in the post-war period,
Right.
there was a consensus, and it was given as a standard that the government needs to try and achieve full employment. for the
Yeah.
people.
I heard the last
Right.
time I heard it was in the 90s. Yeah.
And now we live in an era where unemployment is, as we said, 20%, 50% youth unemployment in Southern Europe, and we're told that that's normal. That's the new normal. That's the crisis is over, and that's not acceptable. So this is what the jobs guarantee is about for me. The people through this transition need to be provided with new jobs.
Just kind of going back to the thing with the unemployment and the breakup of how Europe is, that there's the thing that I'm always kind of turned off by a lot of pan-European movements is okay, we did a whole fucking episode about Volt.
Oh,
Everyone knows
Who's Volt?
my qualms. Yeah, who's Volt? I don't know. Go back to episode whatever it was.
They're also the less popular episode of I Bless the Rains Down Near Africa, where we talk about the literal pan-European movement.
Yeah.
It's weird.
A lot of them are
Christian
bizarre.
supremacy
Yeah, a lot of them are straight bizarre. But I think that the thing that they never really I think a lot of the other movements grasp, it could just be because of how they're organized and where their organization comes from, where DiEM's slightly different, is that there's this idea that there isn't like you mentioned global north and global south, and within Europe there's already that that exists within it may not be a traditional sense of colonialism, but it has colonial roots if you know the fucking history of Southern Europe and shit like that, with especially the Balkans. Finance capital, you could argue, is a new form of colonialism. Whatever it is, there is still this mechanism of capital that then functions the exact same way that it always has, to then differentiate within its own group that there are people then that are expendable, to the sense that then 20% unemployment, yeah, that's normal. The Greek economy is going to do fine now though, because this new government got in place. Let's see if we can get down at 15, or whatever the fucking goal for the new government is. But still, nonetheless, there is there's an acceptance of most of Europe that they're just okay with this, and how Volt, or who's the other pan-European movement? There's also another one.
There's loads.
Yeah, but who are running on on a what's it called? That aren't, well, I guess the other ones are just right-wing groups, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of organization and stuff on a pan-European level. There's some weird orgs that have been around since the 1910s that don't really do much other than organize picnics.
But a lot of the other ones are either this, the national, international nationalism, which is bad, or the idea that then Europe's just magically already equal, and let's just keep doing this. And I think DiEM actually looks at that realistically, and is there is this mechanism already in power, because of Europe was literally had to be made unequal for the economy of Europe to be stabilized.
Yeah, and then there's
the debt crisis of Greece proved that exactly right, because of, I don't know. Sorry, yeah, but, Rob.
Well, Europe and the European Union and European discourse broadly is exactly the big elephant in the room about all of this, because it seems to me, well, first of all, just to take a step back, as an American coming to Europe, living here and trying to understand politics, whatever is going on with this force you want to call European federalism versus individual states is really the crux of the whole matter. And if you're going to solve these problems, on what levels will that be engaged with? And on what political discourse exists on those different levels? DiEM25, as far as I understand, from the outset has always been a European project. And I think it's somewhat unique in that regard, in that there aren't that many left-wing European projects in that way. There are a lot of left-wing parties in various states around Europe, and there are a lot of quote unquote Eurosceptical left wing parties. My question for DiEM25 would be whether there's what structural hurdles would you face in terms of trying to be a left wing pro worker movement on a European level, because. Just all right. Let's take. I don't want to pick on Ende Gelände, but let's take Ende Gelände for an example. You have a lot of committed left-wing comrades there who, of course, want to work. Of course, we want to work with the coal workers. We want to be in solidarity with them, and they can say that and believe it. But there just isn't the infrastructure there in order to stand side by side in these kind of protests. Yeah. They are kept apart, and part of that is because it is a grassroots movement and not a movement through any kind of labor union or workers organization. And can something like that be done through the European Union, which doesn't have those same, it doesn't have any tools for that, whereas they might be somewhat defunct, but at least there are state parties that are that going to be workers parties and labor parties that can be a means to that end. Like, how do we deal with that problem?
We have a metaphor that we are flying in an airplane that we are building while we are flying. And it's I think
an old
it's
Soviet
adequate.
joke.
I mean, Yannis is always talking about things that can be implemented tomorrow morning, like short-term goals. There are mid-term goals, and the long-term goal would be like the European constitutional process. And I think I'd like to think about us as a Mount Pelerin society without money, like trying to achieve horizontal and what's another thing? Vertical mechanisms to reach things. Like, we have people who publish books, who write for The Guardian, who write for National Observer. I don't know who these American outlets are, but interesting enough, we don't write in German magazines apart from the Ada magazine. I think we don't have much press coverage here, because it's easier to comment from the outside, I think. But of course, that's one of the reasons why we were kind of forced to have an electoral wing and to stand in the European election, was that our negotiations with some parties in Germany and other countries were like fruitless, because it was nobody was interested in having a think tank influencing their policies, like from outside. I heard that it's now happening with Labour Party, that they have a think tank like every party in Germany has, and before, the think tank was trying to push their policies inside, and now the Labour Party is actually asking for policies. And this is something that changes, and I hope maybe we can go for it right now as well, because after the election we are back in the think tank mode. And yeah,
I find that kind of interesting, because why is it that on the left side, like in left parties, they're not very interested in like think tanks or something like that, or like policy.
We're pure and smart. We know everything.
Yeah, no, but that is actually I'm
dividing the left, Julia.
Oh, sorry. No, but you see that a lot on the conservative side, especially like there's super big think tanks in the US, but also here and it's like the majority of think tanks. If someone says like, "Oh, I'm working at a think tank," it's probably someone who's like into conservative policies or something like that. Yeah. So
I know the answer for that, actually.
All right. Tell me.
Yeah. Because conservatives made think tanks. Like, they literally started because of the conservative movement in the 1950s and 1960s.
Okay.
So the
Elaborate.
reason, so you have then in so this happens in like 1968 in the U.S. because think tanks are an American invention. Not saying that there wasn't policy made, from outside going in, but typically policy within a nation was then done through, you would have your people come around who would be like, the best of the best and whatever, and then they would be the ones that then try to create policy then in conjunction with then the other members of cabinet, which is still what happens, obviously, but it was much more centered on that sense than it is today. So in the 60s, in the wave of anti-communism that came through, there was actually a consensus between academia, and this isn't a conspiracy theory, this is like an actual thing that happened between academia and the U.S. government, or like the security mechanisms of the U.S. government. And they're like, all right, these kids are getting too freaking wild, being Maoists and whatnot. How do we tame that? And so that's where you have then the development first, like things like the business school, because economics departments used to only be one thing. You would have economics, micro, macroeconomics were taught typically at one institution. Now business schools are the complete opposite end of campuses normally, at U.S. schools from the economics department, and they'll typically teach complete different schools of economics. And at the same time, you have the revitalization of then like the what's it called, the liberal consensus that then you see everyone talks about like how in the like why can't we just go back to being great centrists like we were back in the 60s to the 80s. It's because of an actual agreement between the parties that then in order to fight communists we have to pretty much agree about everything except for like little like nuanced things here. And the last thing was then the creation of these outside groups typically founded by libertarians. So when you mentioned like the Montpellier Society and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know the exact name. Pellerin.
Montpellier.
Yeah.
Pedigree.
I mean, there's a great. Naomi Klein documents this in the Shock Doctrine in the book and the movie. And
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
There's also, the German TV show Die Anstalt.
Yeah.
Did a great episode documenting all of this, tracing from Montpellier right to the Heritage Foundation.
So all those economists went and pretty much made think tanks.
I was actually kind of like, because I thought about
George Mason University is a big one too.
Okay, because there is on the left side there is like a skepticism towards like technocratic kind of like policy making. I mean, it makes sense definitely. Because I mean, you saw what happened in Europe in the 90s, and when
history ended. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, sorry, history ended.
Eastern Europe is fine.
Yeah, they're doing great, especially Hungary and Poland.
Right. I think there's also like one other simple fact, because like that's a very good like historical example of why it hadn't happened. But there's also like I think a contemporary example, which is think tanks are an industry that perpetuate themselves to a certain extent, and like there needs to be money in that. And when you start coming into politics that is like radically redistributing wealth, then what think tank is going to back that is another thing. Like the only example to counter that, which I'm quite excited about and I would love to see more of, is the like it's like the 4 or 3 Ps,
the PPP, the
Popular Public Policy Project, which is like
public-private partnership.
What was the other 3 Ps of old? I can't remember. But the one that was started by I believe Matt Brunig, and it is like a crowd-funded policy project, and it is like they put forward the idea of an American sovereign welfare fund, how to make universal like childcare up until like 18 years of age. Basically, from like 9 months before to 18 years of age.
The Medicare for All program also comes from them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is all like, but this only works I think because it is one. You've got like one insane person, Matt Brunig, who's like dedicated to this, and then you have people willing to actually like do small donations with it. I don't like the funding structure of any other think tank is not going to work like that.
Yeah, of course.
Like when the right tries to find the billionaire behind the left, the best they can find is George Soros, and he funds liberal projects at best.
Or if you are a left-wing project and then you start getting money from him, then you just magically become like neoliberal overnight.
It's just just €1 or something, or $1, and you.
But to bring it back on a concrete foundation, the thing we are trying to do with the GND for Europe is to have to have MEP champions in the European Parliament, like to convince them to pressure and to like, for instance, Alexandra Phillips has us tagged the Twitter account of GND for Europe in her account, and this was one of the things we asked them. We sent them a portfolio of things they can do. And the other thing is to connect with those grassroots organizations like Extinction Rebellion and Fridays for Future and whatnot, and to then raise the pressure until the commission president is actually, we believed it would be Michel Barnier, but now it's surprise, someone else from Germany.
It's a German.
And when she's inaugurated, I don't know when this will be, in September, you know such things, right?
Coronation.
Like her term starts in September.
And then we want to make like a big demonstration and sidelined by articles, by public, by demonstration, manifestations, whatever. And I forgot the third thing we are about to do, like issuing policy papers and send them around, right? and of course involving the public, or at least the DiEM25 membership, in policy creating. So there is a paper that is in its second iteration, but now we want to engage the membership in actually crowdsourcing more ideas and then having them read by experts and having an actual really funded policy proposal for that thing. Because right now it's to be honest, it's the 10 tenets, and you have talked about it in the Previously in Europe podcast. But behind that is a policy paper that's kind of work in progress. So we are going there, and Carol was part of this group, I believe, but you are not anymore.
Yeah, but just to a further point on that, I think in the past year we've seen with Fridays for Future, with Extinction Rebellion, and with even in the European election results, there is kind of a tendency towards these issues. There's an understanding, and that gives me a bit of hope that the public are genuinely behind this, and politicians are a little bit behind. And so the Green New Deal for Europe is the step. How do we translate this desire that's out there into actual policy?
So I have a quick question there, which is, you've mentioned the Green MEP from the UK.
Yeah.
In terms of like support, you said you had a couple of MEPs already on board with the Green New Deal. What are their political leanings? Or even who they are, where they're from, if you can remember, broad strokes, or
Frankly, I don't think that we have too much MEPs on our side. I tried to reach out personally to a person that is working for a Green MEP, freshly elected, and she told me that they don't accept like policy advisors, policy advisors from outside, and we should come to one of their grassroots meeting, like every member should.
This is the German Greens?
The German Greens, yeah, right.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
Berlin Greens. And
Okay, yeah.
I think this is kind of where this, I don't know if you know the concept of folk politics that Nick Srinichek and Alex Williams pointed out in their book, and that actually keeping everything on the grassroots and horizontal level turns out to be a good, Beschäftigungstherapie for people who play democracy.
Keep them
Like,
busy.
yeah.
yeah.
Let
Give them a
like
false sense
the big
of-
people do the job in the
I
parliament.
totally
Yeah.
fucking fall for that. I
So
would.
kind of like giving them the false sense that they are like
and we can discuss
involved.
about Gaia and whatnot. And
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we can. No, it's funny that you
That's the
mentioned
real
that
Green New Deal.
because when I briefly, cause I was,
G&D for Europe. The G stands for Gaia.
The Green New Deal were the friends we made along the way.
because I was asking Giannis about the
your father.
You're on a first name basis.
I was talking to my dad.
I was like,
about
Papa, dearest.
this. Baba, tell me. In the olden days. No, so I was asking about what is the cooperation with German Greens and with European Greens, and he just came back. He's like, they're the most Stalinist party in all of Europe. I'm like, wait, but the description of that kind of makes sense now.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
No, but I just love his over the top descriptions of everything.
Yeah.
It's fucking good.
Yeah, he has a point. He's really good in doing these things. I mean, when you have a video conference with him, he's grasping everything that's in the room, and then he has always this threefold proposal he makes, and everyone is satisfied by that. So I had the chance to have 2 or 3 video conferences with him, and one time to talk to him personally. And he's really convincing because he has a gift to clarify things that are only assumptions, or it's only in the air, and then he's having this razor knife and cut actual.
And he goes
proposal.
wild and out sometimes.
Just to return to, I'm going to rephrase my previous question again because I thought of a new way to say it. I think we haven't talked so much about the exact proposals, but I think Nick and I were saying before we recorded, a lot of it is people know what needs to be done, just no one's doing it in terms of what kind of infrastructure changes need to happen and what kind of proposals need to be implemented. One of the big hurdles is how do you pay for it, which I do think DiEM has a convincing explanation for in terms of, if there's going to be this thing like a centralized European bank and a currency, you might as well hijack it and use it for your own ends. But I think it's still, I think the third, since we're speaking in threes today a lot, the third part that I feel like is missing is getting the people. I mean, I was enthusiastic about DiEM. I can't vote in Germany, but I said I probably would vote for DiEM. And they didn't even get a seat, which, okay, it happens. But
we didn't do our Volt episode early enough.
Yeah, seriously.
No, but I think, to me, I can't help but feel like that somehow, I mean, DiEM25 has thrown in its lot with this European project. If there's going to be this European democracy, we have to engage on that level, especially for solving problems like climate change. But there's not that much. We talked about hijacking the European Bank, but there's not how do you bring the democracy into the European Union? I mean, if we're talking about like just DiEM as a movement, I think that the left-wing critique of the EU that I understand is that it is a neoliberal institution and it can only serve these ends. I don't 100% believe that, but when I see how a European project is led, I mean, for example, DiEM25, a big thing that is made about it are all the celebrity endorsements, which is cool. I'm happy all these people, all these thinkers are on our side, like we're thinking the right things.
Like Anderson.
But is that really is that how you build a broad base? Like that's an open question for me because I want to fucking do it. And the question is, how do we achieve it? And before, I do want to say that I don't want to just shit on DiEM because the other pro-European parties are like, yeah, our plan for climate change is we're going to teach like startup leaders how to vogue and stuff like that. And like so it's nothing. And yeah, you can have full employment, but if someone says something problematic, they get fired immediately. That's like, so there's no plan. And so there is like I said, the first two checks are there.
I have
There's
a Green
plan.
New Deal. All right, how about this? It's not a Green New Deal. I have a green alternative for Europe. How about this? Every worker is chained to their desk and they can't move, so they don't have to drive a car anymore. And
They
there,
just sit there
boom,
forever.
they just sit there forever, and they maybe die, but
Hang on now. I think you're underestimating like centrist pan-European parties' plan for the European answer to climate change, which is we pool our NATO funds, make a European army, and we shoot the climate.
Yeah.
We're going to have 21 Euro drones. So they're all going to be green.
We did it.
But that's
we're going to fund the European Evangelium program.
Yeah.
We're going to get Avas for Europe.
5%
for Europe.
GDP towards green projects. How about 5% GDP towards drones?
That's green, right?
Yeah. How many will that buy us? 10?
I hope that climate change is having a lot of weddings in Pakistan.
Thanks for helping us avoiding the question.
But yeah, I mean, and I don't mean it directly at you two. It's how do we build the mass politics? I mean, that's the question of the.
That's always the
age.
question,
Yeah.
actually.
Like
The masses, how do we get them?
I've read so much Lenin. Why aren't they listening to me yet?
That is a basic left-wing question.
But like going back to the Vault episode, because like we did talk about seeing that one Polish girl who was brought into the Vault spell and her trying to actually talk to the people in Poland. And one of the things I quite liked about DiEM25 or European Spring was it introduced me to Razem, which is a party that just by reading their manifesto I learned a fuck ton about Poland because I didn't know shit. It is kind of like people are hard to reach. The problem with Europe, problem why last election withstanding, the turnout was always going down. People don't really know what's happening with it. A little bit of democracy was introduced with the Spitzenkandidat process, which is now gone, effectively, because Ursula was just pulled out of Berlin, I guess.
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
Out of a tank.
Yeah.
She was hiding.
Don't make me go out there.
You saying that she didn't like triumphantly go into Belgium with the tank? What? Like how not German?
I was born here. It's fine.
So were probably a lot of SS officers. Like
Ghost Ride.
Parody. No libel. But yeah, so it is. We recognize that trying to bring like a mass movement, even in national politics, is a fucking uphill battle. But like Europe as well. What are your guys' thoughts on that? They can be your own. They can be DMs. How do we win?
I mean, I think it's a slow process purely because you have language barriers and you have culture barriers, right? and that makes it a lot more difficult then to build a movement within a country. That being said, DiEM has something like 60,000.
60,000. I mean, it's a bit hard to keep track. There are newsletter subscribers. There are people that actually engage in the forum. There are people who engage in elections, which is only 10% of that, or maybe sometimes 5%. But there is this number between 60,000 and 100,000 newsletter subscribers who are actually also members, because the barrier to become a member is really low.
And what we've also tried to do is build coalitions with other groups and other political parties across Europe. So in the European election, we had in France Génération, who was a coalition partner. We had members of Génération who were here in Berlin campaigning with us. Razem, you already mentioned. There's a member of Razem, Johanna.
The one with the A with the circle from Denmark.
Party,
A Green Party. They have some seats in local parliaments, but they didn't make it in the European Parliament either. There were two weird Spanish parties. I was not so happy about them because Podemos didn't, or Unidos Podemos didn't want to talk about us, with us. But and there was, of course, the founded Mera25 in Greece.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in Portugal there was this Livret, I believe. I don't know too much about them. But also, this thing is not only newsletter subscribers. My girlfriend used to live in Sevilla, and I was there when there was a DSC Sevilla to be founded, or Andalusia, and it was really nice for me to be there and see that like 2,800 kilometers from Berlin, they are forming groups, and they know they have the same discussions we have in Berlin or we have in Cologne, and so it is a thing that is spreading. Members are coming, members are going again, but it is a thing that a lot of Europeans can relate to.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because me being Irish, living in Berlin, it's not easy to get involved. If you're not a German person, it's not easy to get involved in politics in Germany, right? And in our group in Berlin, we have people from France, we have people from all over Europe, and we see that kind of pan-European politics evolving and emerging, and we have our academies, DiEM academies, which are weekend events that we hold across Europe every 6 months or so, where we
there was one in Belgrade, one in Lisboa, one in Cologne.
Exactly, yeah. So this is from within DiEM. This is building, and I guess in other political movements, it's also building. Other political movements that will remain nameless.
Bolt.
Death cult.
But
Death cult. Death cult.
I really think personally, like that our generation is now. I mean, there's a European demos that's actually forming. You know, that this is slowly emerging.
Like, one example I would give is that I was never paid as a person. I was never paid in Irish punts. Like, my first wages were all in euro, and that's like the same for a lot of people who are now old enough to be politically active. Like, for them, I hate to use this phrase, but there is no alternative. Like, this is the way we are, and they don't really know anything else. There's also been like noticeably left-wing parties, like the furthest left in a lot of countries, like Finland and Sweden and Denmark, have all kind of backed away from the explicitly anti-EU position they had. And the reports from all of them are the exact same. It's because the youth movement changed the position, basically, which, again, I find really fascinating. It's too early to say whether this is the right move or not, but that's certainly what is happening.
Are we reclaiming there is no alternative? Is that
yes? Yeah, we're doing it. There is no alternative, but good.
That's probably all because of Interrail tickets.
Yeah, I mean,
hand jobs from the Spanish teenagers.
Fabio De Masi made the point in
I'm
February.
pro-European now. I got a hand job at a phone party. It's all your joke. I'm sorry.
In February 2008, Fabio De Masi made the joke in, I believe, Freitag magazine, that he said we are like EasyJet ravers with European flags. And I think at that time he had a point, but that has changed a lot. I mean, we also see the local DSC in Berlin are changing, that there are coming actually working people, like, or working poor, you could say. I don't want to offend anyone. But before that, I had the feeling that it's more an academic debate club. So people would speak at least 2 languages or more than 2 languages, and who have an academic background and would like to discuss on a really high level politics and so on. And sometimes it felt like what was Lenin's concept, the avant-garde party.
Oh yeah, the avant-garde party. Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with this concept, by the way, but it turned out that it's not too engaging to, like, I don't like to speak about normal or ordinary people anyway, because I believe in the concept of Gramsci that he had with the organic intellectuals. Yeah. I think you can find them anyway. My father didn't have an education whatsoever. He was in a Volksschule and then he made his Lehre. But he's like, when you talk about him, about European history, he can give you an account like he was standing next to the generals in the from Moltke or someone, and he said, and then Moltke said this and that and so on. And it's fascinating because he's really firm in that, and I think he can compete with every history teacher.
There's always that special section of dad history, though.
Yeah.
It's always wars.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's condescending to speak about ordinary people, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So that's the Green New Deal. It kicks ass.
Green New Deal for Europe.com.
Yes. We'll do plugs at the end. Make sure that you guys all know where to go. There'll be links in the description, so everyone listening knows what to do, what to see, what to read. But the other thing we wanted to talk about is the technological sovereignty, which, if I understand, is like a policy paper you're releasing soonish.
Yeah. I mean, we always had it was called Internet of People, which is more or less led by Renata Avila. She's one of the lawyers of Julian Assange from Guatemala. Okay. And she's also part of our coordinating collective. And back in 2018, she started the policy process. And I think I was one of the coordinators of this process, and I think it was one of the liveliest in recent times, because the New Deal was carved out by Yannis before, and some other things were like carved out a bit, but in this regard, in this policy area, there was not much, and we had to find out what we are going to address, and then we had a call for we fabricated a questionnaire with like 20 members and sent it out, and then we got like 30 or 35 or 40 proposals back. And that led to the first iteration of the policy paper, which is in this book, which is a mistake because it was shit. I mean, we tried to find the common denominator there, and it was nerdish. It was too complex. It was wrong, and some ideas are still there, but we had a big shift from the first to the second policy paper, and that is due to the member engagement we had. Like, we had everything on it was not too horizontal, on a GitHub repository. So people who participated actually had to know how to operate these things, but it was in the wiki part. And then we kept track of every changes, of everything that people said to us, and we have all this video conferences all the time, because when we have these thematic groups, of course they are from 5 or 6 different countries, and then we have this video chats, and we had one with the whole group, and which is called Technological Sovereignty, DSC, and the second iteration was far better, and it's more or less that we have now the third iteration, which is going to be voted upon by the DiEM members in a few weeks, I hope. We were a bit late because the European elections, the Greek elections, now the coordinating collective has collectively resigned, and we are in the midst of selecting new candidates. But what is it all about? I mean, the first thing we say is that democratization of Europe without democratization of technology is not longer possible. I mean, Sretko-Horvat always talks about this thing that he calls like digital colonialism, or that we are fighting for sovereignty of nation states while we have this global operating companies that are actually influencing the discourse in the countries, and we have this Cambridge Analytica scandal that was like in the press cycle for some weeks.
Well, maybe a little bit of a landmark case and very like in the weeds kind of stuff, where there was this huge shit about like making sure that these huge tech companies weren't involved in the repeal the 8th referendum in Ireland.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, where like basically they had to, I can't remember if it was a ruling, but they like said they weren't going to field any political ads.
I think Facebook and Google, or Facebook and YouTube, decided to block all political advertising or something.
Yeah. But that was off the heels of Cambridge Analytica, basically them just trying to wash their hands of the whole thing, probably being like, fuck it, now we're not touching this with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, as you can believe, we had a hard time to convince the members that it's an important policy, because, I mean, we are in a time where it's now 1.5 years ago, where the Arbeitsministerin from Germany in the Republika outright denied that there would be job losses due to automation. I mean, she was in front of a baffled audience. She was saying that this is not the fucking problem, and everybody was thinking, "Where you?"
Quite brave.
I'm here at the conference of checkout cashier workers, truck drivers, and HR managers. Your jobs are safe.
Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, even why you say truck drivers, even how is it name, Andrew Yang?
Oh yeah, shit.
In America, I mean, his policies are flawed, but he has a point when he says this, and he has this truck driver thing he can go on. We don't have this myth in Germany, so I don't know which group to target.
We don't have truck drivers.
We do.
What are those things?
Euro Truck Simulator 2 is like a fantasy game.
Yeah, but what are we trying to do? I mean, the most concerns we had was like, my phone is not secure, and then on the other side, people say, when I talk to them, but my conversations are really flawed, and why should I care about the state listening in? But I think what we thought one of a big problem, that people don't actually know what is happening with their data, that it's not really about that someone listens into your conversation, but that we are actually feeding machine learning systems in great server farms in America that then come up with a business distraction here, take over the whole market, and everything is gone to shit. Like, for instance, what happened with Uber, what happened with Airbnb. I mean, those companies, they are not coming out of nowhere with a shitty website. They have like the data that they have a competition advance that is then disrupting the whole market, and that's it. And my girlfriend, she told me that she's forced by the Spanish government to use Google Classroom. Like, before she wrote like upright emails to the children, but then the government of Andalusia, the Junta de Andalusia, said, okay, we can use Google Classroom. And I was baffled, because she told me she was proud that she had set it up, and I said, wow, you're handing over the whole curriculum of Spanish schools to an American company, and that will come in 5 or 10 years with a private schooling solution. Like,
what political party is in charge of Andalusia?
By then it was PSOE, but then now it's a weird coalition of Podemos, Ciudadanos, PP, and
Vox is in confidence in supply in Andalusia. Yeah. Andalusia is historically like a left-wing stronghold. It's usually but like last election, because the last election in Andalusia was what everyone caused people to pay attention to Vox in Spain. It was like they did well in Andalusian elections, and they got this huge national coverage, and then lo and behold, they did well in the other elections.
Right.
My sister teaches English in Andalusia. She has stories as well.
Well, that's all going to change once Google re-educates the youth of Andalusia.
I mean, definitely. It's not that it was a bad policy. I think that simply doesn't care. That simply don't care.
It's literally it's literally the fucking episode of The Simpsons where they see the school of the future and they're looking at the periodic table, being like, God, how many taste-ons is it a Pepsi?
Yeah, true. Oh my God.
But like, yeah, because this whole the Google Classroom thing, that's going hand in hand with the like charter school stuff happening in the States as well. Like, and there's like no public schools in the state of Louisiana anymore. I think it is.
No,
Yeah, the entire state is like 100% charter schools.
weren't that like last time we were in Arizona, like suddenly popping up a lot of charter schools?
Oh yeah,
in
because they don't
Phoenix
actually have to
and-
work either. You can just get it's like if PPPs existed for schools. So you're propped up by taxpayer money, and you can pretty much keep it if it fails, because you have like a thing with startups. You have like, what is it, like the 6-month period where you can fail,
Yeah.
and then you can because what a lot of them will do in Europe is they'll like open up a bunch of startups everywhere in Europe, and whichever one is the most successful, they'll keep it open, and they close the other ones. But so yeah, they have that kind of like mentality with those schools. But no, yeah, Louisiana, because of Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah. I guess all these schools are broken. Well, how about we put in new shitter schools? Yeah.
Great idea.
We did
Actually,
it.
I mean, yeah. First you need a shock, and then you implement like private.
Cue,
I don't read, all right?
cue the like nonstop Milton Friedman
I
clips
know,
talking about
yeah.
how great it is when disasters happen, so that you can make money.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Bill Gates is
You
also
just
huge.
use it for your
Yeah.
benefit. I mean,
Bill Gates is also a huge proponent of charter schools, and he sweeps
Oh, yeah.
into disaster parts of Africa and promotes
Yeah.
them as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey,
Definitely.
he's a humanitarian. Okay.
he is.
and he plays the saxophone.
Those Ebola survivors in West Africa need very poorly functioning, overly digitalized schools.
Wait, did you say that he plays saxophone? That's Bill Clinton.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Bill.
No, Bill
Okay.
Gates. But now I'm imagining them
But
into
didn't
one
you say
person.
Clinton?
No, I
No,
said
Bill Gates.
Okay.
He said. See, he said.
Oh, did I? Fuck.
Yes,
all right.
he
Bill
did.
Gates. Bill Gates does this.
Well,
Bill Ginton probably does something
maybe.
very similar.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure.
was about to
It's
say,
like
like,
that,
it
but
wouldn't
with
surprise
with
me.
arms deals to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool.
All right, back to the.
Another
Thanks for asking me about our solutions for this problem.
Yeah.
So it's a threefold solution, like Janis would say.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have the GDPR in the European Union, which is a good thing, but it's like Renata Avila says, it's like giving aspirin to a cancer patient. Like it's not fully addressing the problem. It's in the right direction.
Hang on, is giving aspirin to a cancer patient even slightly addressing the problem?
Yeah, okay. I mean, most people don't know the e-privacy regulation, which is more or less a regulation that is based on the GDPR and that was supposed to be implemented this year, but still isn't implemented, as far as I know. And this was a thing that was watered down by the European Commission, but we have some caveats, amendments to that. For instance, it's the privacy by default and design. Like you would expect of an elevator to actually work when you buy it and not be unsecure. But when you buy a mobile device or a digital device, it's unsecure by design and by default. And we want this to change. We want how you say when you click these boxes, it's consent, like meaningful consent, and not like take it or leave it consent, which makes no sense. I see also the problem of people getting annoyed by being asked all the time about having these things, but this is one thing that is crucial, and we believe, for instance, that location-based services can be computed in your device without having to talk to the server all the time. So all these things, we don't believe so much, some of our DSC does, in consumer activism, like for instance, Tactical Tech has this data detox set where you can, like in a 5-day program, make your phone safe and so on. But we don't think this is addressing the problem as a whole, because there are a lot of problems with that. One problem is that when you're actually in a country where dissidents are sought after, then you are the only person that using encryption. You are an easy target for everyone. So the more people use it, the better. And actually, most people, as the example of my girlfriend showed, don't really have the time in their daily life to have all these things in check.
No, of course
and
not.
we believe in regulation and in on the European level and in investment on the European level. One thing we ask for is platform interoperability, which is not to be confused with messenger interoperability, because some people made the point that when all the messengers have the lowest common denominator, like for instance WhatsApp, and you are like to communicate with Signal or Wire, you have to go down to when you talk to people on WhatsApp. Now it's encrypted, but there are some issues with that. Then you're forced to leave the secure standards of your provider to communicate with another one. But it actually makes sense with social media services, like when you can, for instance, without having a Facebook account, channel your tweet to Facebook and then addressing another audience there without being a member of Facebook. And there are actually some really good ideas by the World Wide Web group, the V3 group, and we embrace that. And this is all the basic technical level we want to have as a legislation covered. But there's a vision behind that. One thing is we believe in data unions. Like we call the users or consumers data producers, because not only when you use Facebook, as we all know, you produce valuable data that then the company is using for harvesting the eyeballs. But actually, if you are an Uber driver or a Foodora courier, you are delivering the data that maybe one day make your job superficial or superfluous. You're delivering this data to your company, and there's also this thing about also liberals believe in that you have I don't know what this is called, sorry, when you have some experience in your work, you gain credits, people know he has done this job and he has done this job. I can hire him for the next one.
On LinkedIn.
It's called clout.
But points on LinkedIn, for example. Someone can say, "Oh, he has done that."
But in real life, it happens. If you know a good plumber, you talk him, you call him again. Yeah. But actually, when you are working, for instance, for Foodora, you don't own this. And when you leave Foodora, your rating, even if you have been a good driver, it's worth nothing because it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the company.
My calves look really good, though.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And I think to address this is data unions or mechanism for collective redress with those companies, or we believe strongly in cooperatives, like platform cooperatives. We had this event on 3rd of May, and we invited some people from. There's a SoundCloud alternative, which is I forgot the name, but it's a cooperative, and there is this alternative to Amazon, which is called I keep forgetting those names.
A bookshop.
It's a bookshop.
It's the alternative to Amazon.
Oh, is it right?
yeah.
Hey yo,
it's an Amazon you can walk into.
A digital platform, which believes in worker owning this thing, and the people on the board are actual people who work for the company or the companies they work with, the product they're selling, and
okay, this kicks ass. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
this rules.
Yeah, platform cooperatives is a thing we believe in. And in the far future, we believe this is a concept that comes from the city of Barcelona. They have this, as you know, this municipal government of Barcelona is really, really...
Ado Calau's government, they're radical municipalists.
Yeah, and they're working with Francesca Bria, which is a really smart person. And they have the idea that...
Brave cities?
Brave cities,
smart
cities.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Smart and organic cities. And they have this idea that you have this home-stored data storage that is actually at home and maybe in an encrypted cloud. And you can select smart rules. Like, for instance, a smart rule would be when you are sick, it gives away your medical data. Or when you have a medical emergency, then it gives your medical data to the designated companies. Or another smart rule would be that I am a photographer, but I only give my photos away to cooperatives that, like, if you're doing food photos, to local cooperatives that are restaurants or so on. And if you make, the things I mentioned before as valid policy points, so that we have leveled the playing field again, and then implement those things, then people would actually use those things when they can rely that the things they use, their data is encrypted, and they can select smart rules that make sense for them, But this is something like long-term solution we think about. This is the whole chapter I had to coordinate. There are more, but
Apparently.
I think I talked too much already. So
No,
this
but
this
super
fucking
interesting.
rules. I'd especially like to know about this Amazon cooperative. That sounds like something I should do, because there was like people tried to boycott Amazon and it was doable for the 2 Prime days and stuff like that. That's very easy to do, but like one of the big ones used to be, get your books from Book Depository. Oh no, they bought that shit. Fuck. So yeah, that would be good to know about.
You touched on it a bit, but just to like continue the conversation, to what extent you mentioned transnational companies, like multinationals, but how is a European project better suited to tackle these problems than a country, like a specific country one? I mean, is it how are these? Couldn't one argue that these reforms are better implemented through state legislatures, for example, rather than through the machinations of something on a European level, or is it just coordinating between countries? To how does DiEM envision this, like the rollout of the policy in all these different ways?
But isn't there already like a lot of this shit? Decided on a European level, like for example our data law that we have.
GDPR,
exactly, and it goes it goes away from the nation state and them deciding on it to this multilateral decision process. I don't know. That we have in the EU. So.
I guess it would depend on how you view these laws. I think the current state of affairs, they would view them as consumer protection laws, in which case that
it's not like you can go to Poland and have your perfect Catholic internet or whatever.
It is just listen to Radio Maria.
It is already pretty centralized. I
mean, we are aiming for a digital single market, so it doesn't really make sense to have national legacy legislation on that. I found out the name of the companies. The platform cooperative for music streaming is Resonate.is, and the company of Felix Witt is called Fermondo.de.
Fermondo.
I've heard of that before.
Yeah, me too.
Why?
That's to replace Amazon or the alternative.
To replace it. It's actually working. It's not big, but they encourage they have options to sort vegan food, vegetarian food. They are looking at their carbon dioxide balance and so on. And the most important thing is that the suppliers and the people who work in the company actually have a say in the board. It's the cooperative thing. We introduced some rights we want to have. It's, for instance, I always have to look this up. The right to encryption, the right to computation, defined as the right of unconditional and unlimited access to public computing resources and infrastructures, and the right to an algorithmic opt-out, which is really interesting because...
But how am I going to get my Ben Shapiro videos? God damn it.
Literally, there's going to be a big problem of if that were to exist, if you could then opt out of the YouTube algorithm, that'd be just a massive shock to the neo-Nazi YouTube community.
Oh no!
I know, right? Who's gonna be defending them? I don't know. This sounded good until then.
We say we're socialists, but we just cut thousands of jobs as right-wing grifters.
I never thought about YouTube then, but more like those medical advice platforms.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, something probably matters way more. Yes.
Yeah. Or where you just can choose to know if you're actually talking to a human or to a machine, and if you prefer a machine, you can say, I want an algorithm or I want a human.
I want a machine.
And you have a right to know the entity that you're interacting with, I think.
I just want to add a little bit to that because it's really funny because I used to help write responses for bots, and one of the most common questions you get is, are you a robot and are you a bot? A lot of people just don't realize you could just program a machine to say no. It's very easy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of these weird text adventures I played as a kid. It always said when the father didn't get it, dunkel ist der Sinn deiner Worte.
Yeah.
Which is like mysticism for I don't understand what you're fucking saying.
Yeah.
Okay, to the next chapter. There is this, we have this lawyer from Brussels in the group, Joran de Wachter. And he has written a lot of interesting things about IP rights and copyrights. Of course, we endorse the whole Creative Commons thing. Renata Avila is also in the board of Creative Commons.
Oh, okay.
But we also have this policy or policy guideline that says public money, public code, or when something is financed collectively, it doesn't have to end up like private use. And this is touching a lot of things. Like we are seeking for example, we don't want tax exemptions on intellectual property rights, because this is a thing. Like Joran used to say that intellectual property is not actual property, because intellectual property doesn't enable you to do something that you own. It just disables other people to use this stuff. So it's like a negative right.
Yeah, that's like literally been like the thing I always was so confused about in like economics lectures, is that just getting this like thing about like a lecture about why intellectual property is good for the market, but it actually like makes competition not happen.
Yeah.
So it actually then capitalism wouldn't want intellectual property rights then. If you like,
no, I think the issue with intellectual property, and Marx wrote about this in the machine fragment, that basically intellectual property is not scarce.
Yeah,
and in order for capitalism to work, you need scarcity.
Yeah, exactly.
So intellectual property is injecting artificially scarcity into something that isn't scarce.
Because if you had, if you actually had like a true free market situation, then you'd be able to make copies of everything.
And like, capitalism would break down.
Exactly.
This
socialism with Chinese characteristics. Xi Jinping, I know you're listening in. We stan you.
Where's my phone?
Yeah, where's my phone?
Talk into the Huawei phone.
We love you, King. We love you. Shout out to Xi Jinping. He says what's up.
He's actually a very right-wing member of his party.
Shh, don't tell him that.
Don't break the dream.
Yeah. Watch, now like all the weird like tankies who love China are just gonna come after Yulia on Twitter.
Well, they should like maybe vote for the other faction of the party. I don't know.
What? These are like people in the West who love
China. I know. I mean, favor them, not.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. Keep going. Sorry.
But to kind of go on to it though, like this was something weird that like the Pirate Party, we all remember that movement, did like correctly latch on to, because the response from capitalists to piracy, as well as just like the fact that there's just like no scarcity, like they just had to outright lie. The whole like the ads in the UK and Ireland of like, you wouldn't steal a handbag. I was like, no. But if my friend got a new
steal a baby.
You wouldn't steal a baby. No, but it's like, you wouldn't steal a car. I was like, well, no, but if my friend got a new car and he could make me a free copy of the car while keeping his original car, that'd be pretty sick. Like,
awesome.
That'd be so cool. But like, I often encounter a couple of people who are like huge Star Trek fans like myself, who believe that there is like, we can capitalism our way to Star Trek. Yeah. And I was like, but if that was the case, we should all have every book. Like ebooks, everyone could just have all the ebooks.
Yeah, well, that's like Paul Mason's argument. With yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
But no, just on one more thing about China. Sorry, like the thing with the because you're talking about them like of copying your car.
Yeah.
Like it's just so funny looking up all the lawsuits that then China's gotten from like BMW or from every car company that they literally just rip off their cars. And China's like, okay, we'll take it to court, but we're going to take it to court in our courts. And they're like, yeah, we didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about?
It's we looked
the coolest move.
We looked over it, and it turns out it's cool.
It's not only cars; they have like copied whole cities. Like,
they
come to cities.
There's that World of Warcraft theme park in China where they just do not own the rights to anything World of Warcraft. Awesome. It's so cool.
They literally copied an Apple store.
I only found out about it because an old, very confused Chinese woman started sitting down beside one of the like. Fucking main characters from World of Warcraft, like this high elf or whatever, and started praying to it. I was like, oh no. This is the worst world. We've created the worst world.
There's a lot of confusion with this intellectual property thing. I saw an interview 4 or 5 days ago in the ZDF Volle Kanne magazine, which I don't look, but I work there. And they were talking about Amazon had some birthday, or I don't know, or Jeff Bezos made another $1 trillion. but they covered it and
Just
then
made another trillion. What's up? Party
Also,
like
it's my birthday.
and then there was when they invite economic people, it's usually someone from a University of Applied Science in fucking nowhere, like Freiburg or Bonn. And this guy was from,
Never heard of
I don't
Bonn.
know, Solingen. And he said, yeah, and Amazon is actually an innovation machine. They have 95 patents this year. And I
Woo!
thought,
Good job, Kings.
Whose innovation is this? I mean, on the one hand, it's probably just some CSS they patented or some weird JavaScript idea they had, and nobody can use it. So
Yeah.
who's benefiting from those innovations?
Does it also count ones that just like bought from other people? Like, because Amazon will just like, or Facebook or whoever it is. Like one of the biggest ones was like Instagram, for example. Just Facebook, takes that and that becomes then part of Facebook. So if Instagram had any, patents, those are now Facebook's patents.
Yeah.
So is it also like that too? That just like Amazon was like, oh, that's a cool idea from X startup or whatever that then just is literally gunning just to be bought by Amazon.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to have a patent on company mergers.
Yeah.
And every time a company merges, I earn the money.
yeah.
Well, that exists as like a career in the States
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like patent trolls. People who just make these incredibly vague patents and then use it to sue whoever the
Yeah.
fuck when something remotely like it happens.
Yeah, that's a point that Joran makes, that patents used to come from the downstream aspect of technology to the upstream aspect of technology, meaning that it's not the actual application that is patented, but a vague idea. He always says that someone was having a patent in Australia for the reinvention of the wheel or something like that.
Australia.
They need that there probably.
And you mentioned, I forgot something, the antitrust things we have worked out. Like, usually companies have those tax evasions models and they have those GmbHs in every country. And so normal antitrust measures don't really grasp them. But there are ideas also in the SPD to have network effects taken into account when you look at corporate mergers, like the one you just mentioned. What is happening with the data sets when someone buys Instagram, and what is happening with all the patents they have and so on. And network effects is like when you use this thing, the more you use it, the more you are relying on the thing, and you can't leave anymore. And the more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. And that it's the opposite thing of competition, as you mentioned before. So you will have those big players, and there's a tendency to have only one winner takes it all mentality in this.
Almost like monopolies are like a really normal thing that
Yeah.
happen. We're told that they're not supposed to, but I don't know if I buy that.
To wrap this up, the last thing is just an idea of a European platform where people can actually point money from the how is this program called? Horizon Europe 2020?
Horizon 2020.
yeah.
Woo!
2020, and
Yeah.
actually people can actually upload like crowdsourced ideas and have like play money that is like every country, for instance, had 2% of the overall budget and can then appoint that to projects they believe in or they want to.
Just to explain Horizon 2020 real quick, it's an EU fund that is there for research, development, and innovation.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and of course you can like
Like the
bundle
corn
this
laws
with
on the blockchain.
the G&G for Europe and say those things have to be like adding up to the Green New Deal that we are like pledging to.
I'm just really happy too that we've gone in all this technological discussion and have not brought up blockchain until Kieran just mentioned it about it.
Putting the corn laws on the
Yeah,
blockchain.
that's it.
Yeah.
So, like, I like that.
For too long, the Tories and the Whigs have been divided.
But in all seriousness, like, I'm not very, I'm as technologically, savvy as pretty much, anyone else in my generation. Like, I know how a computer works. I can do, this and that and the other. But, the actual, beyond that, I, not that, I'm illiterate. I just kind of, don't care at that point, So, then being able to then, process all this information and being able to, understand it is really helpful for me. Unlike when you come across something like blockchain that's like, oh, it's like everyone has this, wallet thing and then you all participate it and you just like, you end up in these like fucking like crackpot, what just seem like multi-level marketing schemes and just everyone's just like looking at you glassy-eyed.
Seems like.
They are like entirely. But then you just have like some like glassy-eyed weirdo at the end of the day just like telling you how he like invested all of his life savings in like blockchain for like, waifus or something like that.
Hashtag hodl gang.
Oh god. I think also that comes down to the point of like a lot of the problems with the tech space is that I would broadly say is the libertarians got there first.
Oh yeah.
And that
because you can put your waifu on the blockchain.
Because you can put your waifu on the blockchain. It really fucking sucks. Your 14-year-old waifu. God damn it. Libertarians, get your shit together. But like I think the whole issue was there was this huge like utopian idea, like it's in the paper, the California ideology of like homesteading on the digital frontier. This is all very 90s shit. But like that idea left this space for it to be very libertarian. So solutions, anything privacy, has always been like, just install this on your phone, or you set up your own encryption, which will not work for the majority of people because the majority of people like can barely use their fucking email. Like I love the whole thing of like people over the age of 40 will end their instant messages with full stops. And it scares anyone under the age of 40 be like, why are they so mad at me?
I'm just imagining them like sending messages like how telegrams used to be sent.
Yeah, like stop.
Yeah.
But
we have taken Tehran. Stop.
Yeah. But they wish. But like that whole won't work because like people won't understand how to use this stuff. They don't realize what the problem is. Or if they do, they're not motivated. There's probably some more material circumstances in their lives that they're probably taking their attention right away. And then there's also, the usual politician case of single woman with 3 kids. How the fuck, like, does she give a shit about, like, what her WhatsApp is doing? So,
I mean, you're always forced to do this reductio ad absurdum thing that you blow up one special thing to ridiculous proportions. And then you're being criticized for making like these statements. But you actually have to do it because people simply don't care about these things. Yeah. If you don't like mention killer robots or things like that.
I appreciate you bringing up the homesteading analogy because it actually clarified, I mean, not to shoehorn a connection between these two topics, but I do think they connect in some way. Because if I think about what in society I'm most like alienated from how it's produced is basically data and energy, right? Like food shows up and it's just there. It's always coming. The energy's always there and the data always works.
Energy comes from Gaia, actually. So.
And these things,
and also the food.
we thank Gaia every day for energy and food that is on our plates.
But this process, this sort of this deal that you're going to keep getting this stuff has not been done with our consent. Like you said, it is done outside of any control that we have, any sort of democratic process that we have over energy or data or food. And why I think the homesteading analogy is a good one is because it is based on this, I think quite literally in the terms of climate, like a colonial framework, and in data, you could say a semi-colonial or metaphorically colonial. Well, if you're talking about how smartphones are actually made, then colonial.
Yeah.
But like the Green New Deal in the U.S. is something we can't. I know we don't have time to get into, but the Green New Deal in the U.S. I know it's in its sort of early stages, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she's doing videos about it, spends like a few minutes on decolonization, which is kind of wild to think about that that's something in the discourse. But of course, any sort of process that tries to like reclaim agency over any sort of project that tries to reclaim agency over this process has to engage with the fact of how this process grew to be, which in the U.S. is tied a lot with colonization. And I do think it's not a stretch to say things like data and energy also, whether literally or metaphorically, are also these kind of colonial processes that we have to confront, address, and recreate in a democratic manner.
Namaste.
That's what I'm here for.
Just picking up on that, that's also one of the 10 points in the Green New Deal for Europe, and that's the key thing that we talk about to differentiate that between our plan with other plans, that this inequality issue, and not just within Europe, but also, as you said, between global north and global south.
Like Sweden can't keep just sending all their rubbish to Jakarta and just saying, we're done, we're a green country now.
Yep.
It's all gone to Indonesia.
I literally got an ad today for go to Oslo. It's the most green city in Europe. And I had their entire wealth comes from drilling oil.
Yeah, they're
you
Europe,
gotta fuck out of here.
they're
Come
Europe's
on.
fucking drug dealer with a really nice apartment. They're like, I don't get high on my own supply. I'll happily sell it to you fuckers.
Should we wrap up then?
Yeah,
'Cause we're at 1:45.
You asked us how we wanted to change Europe. I say come to our next meeting, the Berlin DSC. We have a worldwide audience, right? So visit diem25.org, become a member, engage in the forum, select me as member of the coordinating collective. No, I'm not running.
Select me as president.
Write in Kieran Dole. It's really hard to spell. You do Alt-E
Go to
and
Greece.
then A to get the accent mark.
have some Greek food in your local how you say it?
Taverns.
Grocery taverns if you have
Your
some.
local Nicks.
Get
Yeah.
your Nick.
Yeah.
That's all you
And
need.
Get your Greek Gerald.
And also read the book. A book about modern monetary theory.
Yeah, fucking educate yourselves.
Yeah.
Anyone? So
Do you
shout
have
outs.
any other
everything?
plugs or
Yeah.
anything else?
you want to
Yeah.
listeners at home? We have pan-European audience. And
We have a
some
worldwide
Yanks as well.
audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to Swing Burger. They have this carbon dioxide thing, and they're doing
Did
really
you-
good things because the numbers are running up all the time.
Did you make up that name, Swingburger?
No, it's actually a thing. They have vegan burgers, and they have this counter where they say how much kilograms of carbon dioxide they have spared.
Folks, are you tired of going to the burger office?
Are you doing?
Ad read? No.
I mean, the part of the reason I'm asking about the whole European project is because we are an English language podcast based in Berlin. We are kind of, if you want to do anything political, our whole existence is inextricable from some sort of pan-European project, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please do not speak German to me.
We will make sure that some Horizon 2020 money goes your way.
Yeah.
oh wow, that'll
can
go great
actually
next to our
Cut his
Putin
mic.
money.
He said too much.
Do we need an audit officer for that shit?
gndforeurope.com. Check it out. All the details of the Green New Deal for Europe plan are on there. The supporters, the pledge, the policy paper we're working on at the moment. It'll be released in September in time for the climate strike.
And it'll be on that website as well.
It'll be on that website.
Yeah.
And the Technological Sovereignty DSC has a Twitter account, and you will find it in the show notes.
Gil?
Will.
Well, thank you guys for swinging by. It was an absolute pleasure how we're going to take down the globalists here in Europe. I hope that we can defend Europa. Next week we'll have Matteo Salvini on. And just absolute pleasure to be talking with the DiEM25 guys. That is DiEM, Democracy in Europe. 25 is the highest number that I can count to. And we will see you next week. Remember, take your brain blast, your Jimmy Neutron supplements.
Oh, ciao. Ciao, motherfucker.
All right, see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.